it's time for another yoga wheel class. There are a couple things I'm going to use the wall for toward the end of class, and I'm going to use 2 yoga blocks. If you don't have blocks with you at home, I will show you some different things to do so you can still do the class even without blocks. Just make sure you've got your wheel handy. And remember to keep in mind, if you're a little bit on the newer side of practicing with this prop, that it's a really different experience than doing the same types of poses without the wheel. So just know that it's going to feel different. Sometimes it'll feel easier, sometimes it'll feel harder, and maybe a little bit more intense. So be careful, be mindful, and keep an open mind. All right, so we're going to start by coming on to our knees. All right, I'm going to turn the wheel sideways, bringing it out in front of me so that I can have my arms fully extended from there. All right, and I'm going to press down firmly into that wheel and do a little bit of cat-cow-ish kind of movement here. Inhale, belly drops, looking up, exhale, rounding and tucking. Inhale, exhale. So in addition to the spinal movement, right, with my hands higher up and pressing down into that wheel, I'm feeling a little bit of stretchiness through the shoulders as well. So if you're feeling that, yep, you're not alone. Okay, let's do one more round. And then with our spine somewhere in the middle, we're going to kind of roll hands over to the right and then turn and look under the left armpit. And then we'll roll to the left and look under the right armpit. And we'll slowly just roll a little bit side to side and turn the head. Right, so we're doing a little bit of twisting. One more round. All right, and we'll carefully come up from there. My arms are extra warm after that. Gonna roll that wheel in. I'm turning it lengthwise from here, taking a child's pose with wide knees position. Bring that wheel right up against you. Drape over it. Look down at the wheel the whole time so your chin is tucked. Hands are slightly forward of the knees. Right, inhale, let's roll forward, tap head to the mat. Exhale, press back. Hips toward the heels, back and forth. Inhale, exhale. Let's keep going. And then next time we are back with hips on or toward the heels, we'll pause here and give a little bit more of a press with the hands. Keeping the head down and breathing. Okay, let's walk it up from here. All right, we're gonna come down to our backs and do a little bit of core work and wake up the inner thighs just a little bit from here. All right, so we're gonna be on our backs, knees bent, feet down. All right, and we're gonna take the wheel in between the thighs and squeeze it. Right, it may take a little bit of experimentation just to sort of figure out exactly the right spot, but we want to be able to hold it there. All right, we're going to reach arms overhead
And let's do clasped fingers, but with index fingers pointed straight up. And we're gonna do a little bit of core work from here. We're gonna start with the lower body. So we're squeezing the wheel, lift the feet. If possible, do a little hip lift so the wheel comes towards your chest, and hopefully it's not gonna squeeze out, right, and pop you in the face, so be careful. I had to adjust mine. We'll lower that down, and then we'll keep that there, and we'll lift up and reach fingers through the wheel. Lower down, arms overhead, lift your legs, a little hip lift. All right, and if your pants are slippery, right, you want to be a little bit more careful with that, right? You don't want to pop the wheel out. Root your low back down when you do your upper body lift. Ooh, I am definitely feeling that. Let's do one more round. All right, take a moment here. Rest. Okay, so I'm gonna keep that wheel squeezing between the thighs, maybe a little adjustment. Take arms out to a T. And I'm gonna put palms down just so I can try to stabilize shoulders a little bit more. Flex the feet, and we're gonna do a little twisting from side to side. And maybe not all the way over, just depending, right? Just see how that feels. Waking up the side body a little bit. I always like when some part of my outfit matches my wheel. All right, next time we're up, I'm gonna grab hold of the wheel and maybe just take a little rest, and you might, feel that your inner thighs are warm. Mine certainly are. All right, and then from here, we're gonna take our feet, balls of the feet into the wheel, right, with feet up in the air, and I'm gonna grab underhanded. Right, and I would say arms maybe outside the legs. All right, on an inhale, so knees are bent and we're kind of pulling in, but the low back is down. On an inhale, we're gonna extend legs up, pull with your hands, but push with your feet. And as we exhale, we'll bend the knees again. Inhale, exhale. Push and pull. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Let's do a few more. Backs of the legs, saying hello. All right, so next time the legs are up, we're gonna kind of do a little bit of movement similar to what we did with the wheel between our thighs, where we tried to lift the legs toward the chest a little bit and back down, and then the upper body and back down. Lower body, down, upper body, down. Let's try that a few times. And this time the wheel is really, I think, a little bit more helpful, right? Because we're pressing feet into it and pulling on it, so it should be a little bit more friendly. And you can always bend your knees, right? You don't have to necessarily keep your legs all the way straight. So then we'll see if we can kind of add on with more of a lift and maybe more of a rock as we come up, back and forth. So we're starting to rock and roll a little bit. And you could do this absolutely with knees bent. And maybe you want to come up and hang out. If you can make it all the way up, maybe I'll get there next time, we'll see. In boat-ish, right? And that's certainly easier with knees bent. So you can try just a little bit of that back and forth, slowly. Remembering that the wheel is heavy, right? And it's gonna weigh us down a little bit. Or at least mine is heavy. All right. Woo! From here, I'm gonna set that wheel down in front and have both legs forward, but one foot up on the wheel, right? We're gonna do a forward fold from here and feel how changing relationship to gravity, lifting that leg up higher as we forward fold with that one leg is gonna feel a little bit different. You don't necessarily have to grab hold of anything. I'm gonna grab big toes and use that to help me kind of pull and lift so that I can try to maintain a little bit more neutral of the spine as opposed to over rounding, which can happen for those of us that aren't super Gumby-like. You can really feel that on the back of that lifted leg. Let's do that on the other side. So get nice and tall. Again, you don't necessarily have to grab hold of something. You could grab the wheel, feet, big toes, what have you. All right, really give a little pull in if you're grabbing something and see if that can help you to lift the chest a little bit more as you fold forward. Woo! I can feel that a lot. Right in the meat of that hamstring area on that lifted leg. Okay, let's come out from there. And then we're gonna come back onto our knees. And instead of doing cat-cow, we're gonna think a little bit more neutral spine. We're gonna warm up the arms a little bit more from here. We're gonna find a hand clasp and set the hand clasp on top of the wheel, right? And you may have to adjust position a little bit. So we're gonna roll forward and roll back in. And you may have to find a little bit of a happy medium with your placement so that you can still press down, right? So we should be feeling this in the shoulders. I do have a plan where all this is leading, so stay with me. Okay, definitely could feel that there in the shoulders. All right, from here, gonna warm up, go back to the lower body, do a little bit of warming up there. Gonna take one foot forward, so we're in a low lunge position, all right? And a lot of times in my non-wheel yoga classes, I do this sort of lunge forward, shift back thing. So we're gonna let the wheel help us with that and let it give us something to press down into for leverage. So we'll roll the wheel forward, right? And this is sort of lizard-like, right? Or dragon for yin. And then we'll roll it back and straighten the leg. And let's keep toes down for this one. We'll go to a lifted toe position after this one. Okay, we'll roll forward, bend the knee, right, and maybe you're getting down inside that leg. You can widen a bit if that helps. And we'll straighten the leg and roll it back. Bend walk it forward, press down, roll it in and straighten. Bend the knee, roll forward, press down, and we'll walk it back straight and roll it back in. All right, from here, all right, we're gonna pivot this back shin in a bit. So we may have to get things a little more lined up. All right, so we're kneeling on, I'm on my left knee. I'm gonna put the wheel under my right thigh and flex the foot, and then roll a little bit that hammy area. Right, we already got it warmed up, so now we're giving it even a little bit more attention, like foam rolling. You feel some gnarly spots in there. Okay, and then we'll keep it there with a flex foot, and we'll push down into it, which can help us to even out through the hips. And we'll go into a little side stretch from here, reaching toward that foot and reaching this opposite arm overhead. And we're feeling maybe some yummy things down that bent knee side as well. Okay, let's come up from here. We're gonna take that wheel over to the opposite side, right? I'm gonna take my hand down so I can move this leg so that I'm lying sort of on the side of my hip. All right, so we're gonna do some rolling back and forth into some side bending. Right now I've got both knees bent and my feet are crossed. I've got my top foot over the bottom foot. It may take a little bit of experimentation to figure out exactly where things need to be, for me as well, right? So bear with me. We're gonna drape our sides over the wheel and hook the upper arm over it, right? And then, again, you may have to move your feet a little bit, right? We're gonna straighten the legs and press and roll over and reach with the arm. I've gotta move my legs a little bit further out, and then bend the knees and come back down, right? Let's try that a few times. And this time, right, we're gonna stay in that side bend, but we're gonna make it just a little bit more relaxed. I'm gonna take my bottom knee down and a little bit forward, and that allows me to kind of drape that hip a little bit more onto the wheel. Top leg might move back just a little bit. I'm still squeezing the wheel. If your neck's feeling uncomfortable, you could also hold your head up or grab a block and place it underneath. And we're gonna try some big circles with this other arm. Starting to turn the palm up as it comes back behind us. That should feel pretty nice. Switch directions with that circling. Make it as big as you can. Stay with your arm over, squeeze the wheel. Okay, to come down, I'm gonna move my bottom knee forward a touch. You can take this top arm down and then roll down. Come on up, take a moment. Whew. Definitely could feel, in addition to just that side body stretching, that side of my neck as well, which is nice. So we'll do all that stuff on the other side. So, I'm gonna just face the opposite direction. All right, so we'll have the left foot forward for a low lunge, and we'll do that rolling front to back. Maybe make a little bit of space so the wheel's inside your foot. We'll roll it forward, get a little more lizard or dragon-like, and we'll roll back and straighten, pushing toes down. Yeah.
and back. Okay, and then I'm gonna pivot this back shin in, right? Get things a little bit more lined up, right? And then I'll take that wheel under that left thigh, the back of the thigh, and roll the hammy area a little bit. You can always do that with hands down if that felt better or safer. Okay, and then I'll set my foot down and I'm flexing and pushing down to help me get the hips a little more even, and then I'll reach toward that foot and feel all that yummy goodness down opposite side, down from the knee up into the hip, the belly, the shoulder. Breathing. All right. Come on up from there. I'm going to move that wheel over to the other side and come down so I'm kind of sitting side saddle. Right, and again, we're going to do that up and down sideline position. Right, going to hook upper arm over. Right, top foot is crossed over bottom foot. You may need to adjust your feet a little bit, just depending on proportions, etc. So we'll press and straighten the legs as we reach arms over, and then we'll lower back down. Back and forth a few times. And you can do your arm in a couple of different ways, right? Just depending on how your shoulder feels. This time we'll stay. I'm going to move that bottom knee a little closer in so that my hip can make a little bit better contact with the wheel. Right? Top leg might move back just a little bit. Right? Head can just drop or hold it up with your hand or a block. And we'll start by reaching this top arm forward. Let the palm start to turn up as it moves back behind you. We'll do a couple big circles in this direction. Nice and slow. And then we'll switch directions. Squeeze the wheel. Pause and breathe. Okay, so again, to come down, we'll bring bottom knee forward and slowly lower. We'll take a moment once we're seated just to let that settle, see how we have felt about that. Okay, so I'm going to use my blocks for this next part. Again, if you don't have them, I'll talk you through what else you can do. Right, we're going to get into our backs a little bit more, which should feel pretty nice. So, make sure that you're far enough away to the wall so that when you roll back, you're not going to hit it. And we're not going to go like super far back this time. We're going to start small and then add on later. Okay, so from here, I'm at the edge of my mat. And I'm going to lean back against it, and it's kind of resting like right in the middle in between the shoulder blades. From here, I want to make sure that my head is supported. So if you have a block, we're going to take it where the flat part is going to be against the head, lengthwise. I'm bad with words sometimes. All right, and then we'll let that go back so that you can rest your head. If you don't have a block, right, just clasp your hands behind your head and
keep your elbows in so that you can keep it supported, and maybe your head makes it all the way down and maybe it doesn't, but do something either with your hands or your block so that your head and your neck can be supported. All right, and I've got my other block handy because I'm gonna use that in just a moment. All right, so starting by getting that set up, right? And then we're just gonna explore a little bit with our backs to start, right? Keeping the hips low, lift them just a little bit, but not thrusting them up toward the ceiling, right? Letting it hang, and then rolling back and forth a few times. You can put your arms wherever you want, but keeping the hips low. All right, make sure that block stays secure. So it's kind of down against my neck as well. And that should feel pretty nice. You can roll a little further back if you want to, or just keep it small. Remembering that we just need to be careful with how things are feeling and not push anything too far too soon. So from here, if I can find my extra block, there it is. Right, so as I roll back, I'm gonna try to go a little further this time. I'm gonna have the block between my hands. So you could do that with anything between your hands or just reaching your arms, right? You don't necessarily have to have the block between your hands, but it does give us something to press into, right? So as we roll back, I'm gonna keep my hips low and reach arms overhead, and maybe my block taps down behind me, depending on arm length. Mine are long or not. And we'll roll back down and take the arms back down. We'll try that a few times. In non-wheel class back bends, like upward bow, which a lot of people call wheel pose, right? The arms are overhead and we're trying to get them straight, and this could help us with that, and we see why maybe that's a little bit hard, right? Okay, and then from somewhere in the middle, right, my arms are elevated. I'm gonna try not to let my elbows go out wide. I'm gonna let my hips kind of hang, and I'm gonna bend the elbows and see if I can bring that block toward the wheel. But the elbows are not wide, right? They're hugging up and up toward the ceiling, and then straighten the arms again. And this is gonna get us ready for some forearm stuff later. I'm trying to stay strong and engaged through the arms, but at the same time, trying to be a little bit more relaxed with everything else, and still let the back bend happen by letting the hips go toward the wheel. And then maybe I might just drop my block from there and see if I can find my wheel to grab hold of for a little bit more. And I'm feeling that on the side of my ribs and up through the shoulders. We'll explore more of that a little bit later. Let's lower the hips down, and if you don't have your block, you're gonna grab hold of your head with your hands to make sure that you're supporting your neck, right? If you've got your block, you can grab it and lift away from the wheel, and then come all the way up and take a moment to rest. You can just kind of drape over your legs a little bit here. All right, so things are feeling nice and warm in my back from there. All right, so we're gonna go back to a little bit of core work from here to prepare us for the grand finale in a little bit of time. All right, so I'm gonna come back to my knees. I'm going to do this a couple of different ways, and this also ties back to some of the core stuff we did on our backs, right? When we had the block, or sorry, the wheel in between the legs and did the twisting. So we're going to try the same thing,
but in table. So you kind of have to get perched over your wheel, right? And get your hands down, and then you're gonna squeeze it with your legs and pick it up, right? And then we're gonna twist it from side to side. All right, keep pressing into the hands. And then let's try the same thing down on elbows instead. Ooh, I can feel it, I can feel it. Okay, lower that wheel down. We'll come on up from there and just take a moment to rest. All right, so then from here, we're gonna kick it up even more of a notch. You could do this on your hands. I'm gonna do it on forearms since that's kind of one of my themes for today. So that's how I'll show you. All right, so we're gonna be in a forearm plank to start with the possible addition to go more toward dolphin-ish, right, more up with the hips. So we're practicing for forearm stand, right, feather peacock. So if you feel more comfortable getting closer to the wall for that, right, you certainly could, don't necessarily have to, all right? So from here, I'm gonna have both feet on the wheel. So it might take a little bit of experimentation to find the right spot, and it's really more like feet and ankles, right? And you can try a couple of different ways to do your hands. I'm gonna do a hand clasp from here, okay? And then I'm gonna roll that wheel back so I'm in a forearm plank. And then I'm gonna just do some weight shifting, but keep a straight line. So roll forward, and then roll back. And this is kind of like a body saw exercise. Core out the wazoo. And then we'll try some pike-ish, dolphin-ish lifting, forearm stand-ish lifting. By rolling that wheel in as much as I can, which it always feels like it's more than it actually is. All right, from here, I'm just gonna take my knees down, feet off the wheel, and just rest for a little bit. That'll definitely get your heart rate up a little bit, get things a little bit warmer. All right, so then from here, I'm gonna bring bring your mat all the way to the wall if it's not, and I'm gonna bring the wheel all the way up against the wall. So we're gonna do a little stretch to start, and it took me quite a few times practicing this one to get to where it just really didn't scare me. So, you know, if you start to feel a little jumpy, a little scared, I think that's normal. It helps me to have my feet wider apart. So what we're gonna do, so it's sort of like a wide-legged fold, right, with a hand clasp, but we're gonna use the wheel and the wall for some assistance to leverage the stretch a little bit more. So, I'm gonna get my feet wide apart, and my head's not gonna be on the mat, right? I'm just gonna take the back of my head and my neck up to the wheel and press against it. And you may have to move your ponytail out of the way to make sure that's comfortable, right? And we wanna be close enough where we can press against it and feel somewhat stable as we press. Feet are pressing, and then clasp your hands and push into the wall
with your hands clasped, yeah? And breathe. So to come down, I'm going to still keep my feet active. Take hands down, push to lift my head up, and come down from there. All right, we'll just take a moment to let that settle. All right. From here, I'm going to do a little bit of spinal movement just to let things settle before going on to a little bit more of a working position. So we're going to do a butterfly down dog to start, which is fingers spread wide and the heels of the hands on top of the wheel, right? And we're going to have the hands a little bit on the down slope and step the feet back, right? Hopefully with heels down, so you might not be too far back. We're going to pop our heads through the wheel and just give a little press to sort of feel some traction through your spine. And then we're going to do a little bit of cat-cow spinal waving-ish. All right, so we're going to come up onto the tippy toes and round the back as we bring the head through. And I'm going to grab the wheel because that feels more stable, and then go into like an up dog, and then round back up and through, back to that down dog. And you can release your fingers when you're back here if you like. All right, rounding, coming forward, up dog-ish, and then pressing back up. And you may have to adjust your feet a little bit too. And then let's stay in our nice butterfly down dog and maybe wiggle a little bit. All right, and we'll come on down from there. Okay, so we're going to try going upside down next in a forearm stand, which we've been practicing for by doing that stuff on our forearms and warming up the shoulders and the core and all those things. So hopefully we can tie some of that together. I'm going to give you sort of the more basic or kind of starting place option to start with. And then, especially if you have a couple of blocks and are feeling maybe just a little bit more brave, you can try a couple of different things. All right, so starting point, similar to when we did the wide-legged fold hand clasp variation with the wheel on the wall, we're going to take the back of the head and neck and upper back up against the wall, kind of like we would be in dolphin, right? We're going to have forearms down and L fingers inside the wheel with the other fingers out on the mat. Elbows not wide, elbows in, right? We prepped for that when we were doing our back bending earlier. And then we're going to see if we can use the wheel that we're pressing into to help us lift up in a more controlled manner and maybe not even go all the way to the wall. But we know it's there and we're not going to fall over, right? We're still going to be pressing down like we did in our forearm plank work, right? So we still got to work. It's not going to do all the work for us, but it's going to help. All right, so L fingers in the wheel, other fingers on the mat, elbows shoulder width, right? I'm going to lift up like dolphin and walk until I feel the back of my neck, upper back shoulders against it as much as I can, right? Keep walking in, press down into your elbows. My head is off the floor, right? So it's not a headstand, it's a forearm stand. I'll lift one leg up and see if the other one wants to come, right? But I'm trying, as I lift, not to fling or flail. Make sure that you try that on both sides.
If you wanted to play, if that felt okay, here's one thing I like to play with sometimes. So getting a little bit further away from the wall, again, knowing that it's there, right? But you can play with some different leg variations. So I'm gonna take both of my blocks against the wall. I'll try lengthwise so to make a little bit more room. I'll be brave today. We'll see what happens. So the wheel is pressing into both of those blocks and they're pressing into the wall. So should feel pretty stable there. I'm gonna try lifting up the same way, but then I'm gonna try some other leg positions, right? It will feel possibly a little bit back bendy as well, which we've warmed up for. So we'll see what happens, but same setup, same attempt to lift as before.
Moving that hair out of the way. L fingers in the wheel. All right, finding the back of my neck, upper back, pressing it there. All right, lifting up. And then maybe I'm thinking one knee bent and the other one, right, toward the wall and letting it back bend a little bit more. Right, and I can try that on the other side as well. And you can always do one block to start, right? And the block could be sideways, so you're a little bit closer, but unless you've got teeny tiny shorter legs, right? I was still pretty close to the wall. You could see that, right? So it still felt okay for me and fairly safe and comfy and not too scary, right? Okay, so from here, right after you've played around with that a little bit, had a little bit of rest, we are going to explore a little bit of back bending as a treat after all of that. So I'm going to move away from the wall again so I don't bump into it again. All right, so you can do the same thing we did a little bit earlier and maybe just go a little bit further back. If you felt like you were able to grab hold of your wheel before, right, you might be able to do that from here, lying down, right, especially since we've done a lot of warming of those areas. That might feel better at this point, right, so know that you've still got the block here, and you could even grab the wheel with the block there as well, right. If you wanted to go further, you might lose the block, have your head on the wheel, and just grab hold of the wheel and do a little rolling. Maybe you roll further back to where your elbows make contact with your mat. And then you can walk your hands a little bit lower toward the mat. And just hanging out here feels nice. If you wanted to try pushing up off of the wheel so that you're in a forearm wheel, forearm upward bow, straight legs, right? Two-legged inverted staff pose. It's got a really long Sanskrit name. And then you can come back down. Maybe do a little more rocking. You could always just release your arms and kind of hang out, spread eagle, right? When you are ready to come down from there, again, we want to make sure that we're not putting too much strain on the neck. So maybe your block is there and you grab it, or grab your head with your hands and help it lift. And we'll come up and have a rest from there. To include a shoulder stand as a nice counter pose
in my real practice. It's a lot friendlier than regular shoulder stand without the wheel, so know that if you typically don't enjoy that pose very much, this one's much, much nicer. If you have long arms, right, make sure you have a block down, like midway on your mat for when we get down. So we're not gonna grab hold of the head this time. We're gonna keep our hands on the wheel down below.
Keep your chin down and you're looking forward so that as you roll back, when we get down, we're gonna have the upper back, shoulder area, and back of the head on the mat. We're not gonna let the head fall back, right? We need to have this part of our bodies down on the mat, right? Hanging onto the wheel as we roll. We're gonna have faith that we're gonna get there, right? And as we keep rolling, we're gonna make it down and the legs will lift. And the wheel is supporting the sacrum. If you are grabbing near the bottom of your wheel and your arms aren't straight, grab your block and place it up against the edge of your wheel and grab onto it that way. So you're giving a little pull in. And your legs are just resting, your sacrum is resting on the wheel, and it should just feel really nice and not like work, right? So a more restorative, restful version of shoulder stand than the regular version that we do without the wheel. And we'll breathe. You can always go into plow from here by taking legs overhead, and you can lose your block if you have one there and just sort of roll the wheel in a little bit more, and that's sort of helping you stay in place, right? Maybe you just choose to stay in your shoulder stand. That's okay too. I don't love plow personally. I don't like how it feels on my neck, so you can decide. And then whenever you're ready to come down from there, the easiest way, what I'm gonna do today, is to take legs overhead like plow and then roll the wheel out and roll down. And I'll just take a moment here to let my back settle. All right. So from here, right, we're gonna just do one little stretch on our backs and then we'll be done. So, this ties in a little bit to what we did earlier. I'm going to start with my left leg, and I'm going to reach the ball of the foot into the wheel and extend it up toward the ceiling, right, and just give the back of that leg a nice little stretch. I'm grabbing underhanded so I can keep my shoulders more relaxed and down into the mat. Your knee may not be all the way straightened. That's okay. All right. From here, I'm going to go into a twist. Right, so I'm going to be careful as I roll over to the right. Right, I'm going to take the wheel down, and I'm still pushing into it. And you might even keep it just a little bit elevated until you can feel where things need to line up, right? And I'm pushing into it to help me not crunch this hip up, right? I'm pushing in my foot into the wheel so that I can bring the hip down and find a little more space at my side. And then from there, I'm pulling on the wheel with my hand as I push my foot into the wheel and use that to still keep my hip down and maybe reaching the opposite arm out. You might feel some of those glutes, maybe even IT band area, getting some attention on that top leg. and try that on the other side. Right, so I'll come back down and take my right leg up. Ball the foot's in the wheel, extending up, grabbing underhanded, right bottom of the wheel, and pushing up as I pull down. And breathing. And I'll carefully start to roll that over to the left, right? Maybe taking a moment before it comes all the way down to press and get that hip off of my waist a little bit. All right, and then I'm pushing into it and pulling with my hand for leverage. And can reach out, opposite side at the same time. Just leave my wheel there and remove my leg and roll back down to my back. Give the knees a hug, rock it out a little bit, and then come all the way down for Shavasana. All right, close your eyes and take one last scan of your body and make sure things feel comfy, make sure things have space. Relax your jaw and your face and let your breath return to a natural state, allowing yourself these last few moments to rest. Let's start to deepen the breath. And to invite gentle movement by wiggling fingers and toes. And circling wrists and ankles. Reach arms overhead. Give yourself a nice long stretch, fingertips down through your toes. Hug your knees in towards your chest and rock from side to side. And then roll over to your side and rest there. And gently press up to a comfortable seat. Bring your hands together at your heart, close your eyes. Take a moment to reflect on your yoga wheel practice today, acknowledging your efforts and your willingness to try new things. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to practicing with you again soon. Namaste.